And some questions. How much will cap and trade cost the average household when fully implemented in terms of cost of gasoline, natural gas, electricity? The new climate bill, Senate Bill 1530, seems like a cop to the GOP senators who fled the state and killed the Clean Energy Jobs Bill. Why is this version not a total cave-in to them? And concessions are being made to try to get the bill passed. How can we be sure that whatever is passed will actually be effective? Will any of the concessions actually ensure 2 Rs in each chamber will show up for quorum?
Lots of questions. That's maybe I'll start. Go for it. So, thank you for the folks who raised your hands about wanting to do something about our greenhouse gas emissions. So, on the question of cost, climate disruption is already costing all of us. So I'll just start there. What you're going to see, hopefully, in the bill that we pass is a recognition that the sooner we get started, the less impact it will have. Because the shorter the timeline, the bigger the impact. If we can get started now and have a reasonable timeline to reach our goals, the costs will be spread out over a longer amount of time, have less impact, but also get us to our goals with the benchmarks that are in the bill. The benchmarks that were in House Bill 2020 have not changed. Our goals have not changed. What you'll see in the new bill is an attempt to listen to some of the concerns that that came up last year that people didn't feel the House bill had addressed. The goal is to continue to hit the emission goals, but do it in a way with smoother transitions. I can't say right now what that actual cost will be. There are a lot of estimates out there, and some of them are just plain all false. People are making up some numbers. But we will have that kind of analysis when the bill is finished. And last year, we passed a companion bill that would have provided rate relief to low-income households on the price of gas through tax relief. So we understand that for some households who have less ability to pay when there's a change in prices, that we're trying to mitigate that. But we won't have those specific numbers until the bill is actually finalized. In terms of 1530, that is the bill that the Senate has been working on, likely to be the bill that we will try to pass to set up the program. There are changes from the last bill. I don't believe it's a cave-in. I think it's a conscious effort to respond to concerns while we're still trying to hit our benchmarks. And I can tell you in the House, we've been very clear with our Senate colleagues. I appreciate all the work they've been doing. They've been working really hard to get to a bill that they can pass, but it has to be good enough for the House to pass. So we've been super clear with them about that, and I think we're really close. And I think that gets the other question, will the bill be good enough? If it's not good enough and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, we won't pass this. This is not like some topic that we can just come back on year after year. This is an urgent issue. The bill has to get passed. We have to get started. And it has to be good enough to actually do the job. So that's the goal.
Okay, well, I think Tina put it pretty well. It is not something we want to come back year after year, but we have been coming back year after year. And it's frankly time to get something done.
Yes.
And so that's part of what we're looking at in terms of the bill itself. I agree. I don't think this is a cave-in to things. I think that there are people who are still very upset about it, and some people who would never think that it was enough. So you have to deal with that as well. Some of those are my colleagues in the Senate. Some of those are my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, as you say. I think we've managed to get to most of the folks who are to the key people in the Senate and the Democratic side to make some decisions, but there will be some more discussion about that. I think there's still some discussion going on. I cannot tell whether my colleagues will be showing up. I can tell you that in my time since the session ended, I've traveled around the state, been to the coast and to Southern Oregon and to Eastern Oregon and Central Oregon, and I rely on some things that I learned as a reporter. I eavesdrop, and so I will sit in a restaurant and somehow pick up what's being said at the tables next to me. And the impression I got from my eavesdropping is that there are folks around the state who objected to the bill, thought that the spectacle that was used to try to stop the bill from going through was effective for a bit, but they are also tired of the spectacle, and they don't. And these are Republicans I was listening in on. They do not want to see us begin to look like Washington, D.C. And so they are very clear about that. This I heard in Bend, I heard it in Yahats, and I heard it in Astoria and several other, and also in Southern Oregon. So there are people who are willing to say that, and they want something done. They recognize that we are dealing with a global warming issue. They are not denying that in the general public, but so they want to see something happen with their the people representing them, and they're willing to say that. So I think there's less. I'm optimistic. I could be proven completely wrong, but I'm optimistic that we will in fact not have the kind of walkout that we had before. And we are also in the process of having, there's a bill that's been drafted to change the quorum requirement in the Constitution. But in order to change the quorum requirement in the Constitution, you have to have a quorum. So there's a bit of a catch-22 situation taking place there. So we'll see what happens with that right now.
So I just want to say a few things about the cost. We recognize every single day, I mean, we all do as human beings, that things cost more now than they did yesterday, right? And they did 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago, whatever, and they will cost more in 5 or 10 years. It is the reality of the world and economics. But what I think that we have to also recognize is that the earth itself doesn't give a rat's hind end about how much things cost. The rain doesn't care, the wind doesn't care, the sun doesn't care, and nor do the plants. I wanted to move it out so it's not so close to my face.
Hear you.
But the natural world does not care how much things cost. And I guess I want to say that I feel like we have no right to put the cost down as a reason not to do anything for the future generations. We have a responsibility for 7 generations to come, and I don't care how much it costs. And I know that not everybody thinks like that. I know that that's a hard thing. And I know that as we sort of look at our bottom lines, you know, at the end of the month or whatever, you know, every 2 weeks when our paycheck comes in and most of it's gone. I mean, I live day to day too, just like everybody else. But then that means I'll have to figure out how to do it a little bit differently. If what that cost is making sure that we can move this bill, that we can make some changes and shifts in the way that we do business here in the state of Oregon. So, thank you.